Well, hello once again, gang. Welcome to this episode of the Ministry Show, where Pam and I are continuing to talk about energy management and a lot of similarities to time management, but actually energy and time are sort of two different things. This session, we want to talk about this idea of being comfortable in your own skin. We've been wired by God. The scriptures tell us that He knit us together in our mother's womb, so He knows us inside and out. And He made each and every one of us in an individual way that is specifically what He wanted us to be. And I don't know about you, Pam, but I spent way too much of my life pushing back against the way I was made, trying to become something that I wasn't, because I thought that was better in the situation I was in or whatever, instead of accepting who God made me to be and then doing the best I can within that. Talk to me about that. Have you ever, you're nodding your head.
I've done it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I still at times compare, and think, oh, they're so good at that, or it's such a great communicator. I want to be that.
Yeah. How much energy does that waste?
Exactly.
That whole process, right?
That's
trying
right.
to become something that you're not, or trying to be something that you can never become, and I'm not talking about little kids wanting to become Michael Jordan or LeBron James or whatever, but, really kind of going, oh, I need to become something I can't become.
I want to be a worship leader, and I can't sing, Chris. It's just...
That's a problem.
I had to put it to rest.
Yeah, put it to rest.
Yeah, it's not
Yep.
going to happen.
Yeah. And so energy management requires that I not only know and understand my own self, but my own rhythms of energy. When do I naturally have the most amounts of energy, or when am I less energetic? And when we know and understand our own selves and our own rhythms, then all we have to do is do the most important work when you have the most energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you know that I'm a morning person.
Very early.
Yeah,
morning
most
person.
days I wake up just wide awake and ready to go. And, I set an alarm, but I hardly ever hear the alarm at all because I just wake up. And so I'm definitely a morning person. So I don't want to work on important projects or have important conversations or deal with the most important things of my life in the late afternoon and evenings. That's a downtime energy-wise for me. I want to relax. I want to enjoy the company of family and friends and things of that nature, things that are energy boosters to me. And I want to concentrate my thought time and the time that I have to focus on the most important work that I do. I want to do that in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You and I cannot give our best to our friends, to our work, to important projects or people when we have low energy. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
I have a practice usually on Saturday mornings, sometimes Sunday mornings. I love going out for breakfast with my wife, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I'm high energy at that time, and I'm much more attentive to what she has to say, her comments and things like that, than in the evening when I'm less energy. Our schedule, our time, and our important factors need to revolve around not just time, but the energy factors in our life.
When our energy is low or our resistance is lower, we get requests from others or temptations. And you have a word that I love, Chris. You call them nags.
You're going to hit me with that one, huh, Pam?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. So,
Yeah.
Well, as a pastor and a church leader, we have to come up with an effective strategy to deal with what I lovingly call nags. They're negative, arrogant, or grumpy people. Usually it's a combination of the three, but they're everywhere. And they will suck your time and your energy, by the way, if you let them. We've got to come up with an effective way to deal with those kind of people in organizations, specifically the church. But let me go back just real quick to something you said, Pam, that when we're low energy, our resistance to temptation is lower.
Yeah.
Man, that's a real danger for pastors.
Mm-hmm.
Real danger for me. It's a real danger for Christians in general, that probably the time that we slip into those either old patterns of behavior that were sinful, or we have the most amount of susceptibility to temptation, is when our energy is low. And that's when we need to make sure that we're surrounded by the right people at the right time to kind of overcome those things, but also be aware that if you're entering a low energy phase or cycle, that you're particularly aware that temptation that is easily sloughed off by you under normal circumstances might have more of an impact on your life when you're low energy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, and for me personally, I need to just go away by myself. I need to kind of isolate, and especially if I'm feeling just like I have no more to give. It's like a bank account, Chris. I can't just go to my bank all the time and withdraw of what I have not put in. So I need to be refreshed. I need that time alone. And I'm an extrovert, but I do get rejuvenated when I'm away at times from people, and I can just refresh and get rid of the nags.
Yeah, and if you want more on that, we interviewed a local pastor here in Colorado Springs, Brady Boyd, recently, and talked about his book, Addicted to Busy. It's really good, just a few shows ago, so you could check that out. But what you're talking about there, Pam, makes me think we need to figure out what we need to do in our lives to protect ourselves from ourselves.
Yeah. Explain that. Let's say that again and then explain it.
I mean, sometimes we're our own worst enemy because maybe we're just either A, not self-aware, B, we could be self-aware but just kind of not caring about our own selves. We have to set that side of time to invest in yourself and can't always expect others to be doing that for us. Or we could just be aloof to this idea that, man, temptation comes, rejuvenation's an important thing. The idea that the Lord, that God, as he made the world, he rested on the seventh day. I'm not real sure that he needed to rest. I think he's laying out the pattern for you and I as human beings. We have to take time to rejuvenate our energy before we expend energy. And this whole thing, we're not going to get into it big time here because there's a bunch written about it, but this whole thing of burnout comes from our inability, maybe not inability, but lack of awareness that we have to take time on a regular basis to rest and restore and replenish our energy.
Yeah.
And when we don't, unfortunately, this burnout happens. We start getting skeptical and cynical and critical and all of those types of things. And then pretty soon it's like, this isn't even worth it. Well, that's a bad deal to burn out of ministry. So the antidote for it is get comfy in your own skin, do what you can do, and then replenish on a regular basis. I think we live our lives in a weekly cycle.
Yeah.
I think that pattern's laid out very simply. And so we need weekly times that we're spending to replenish our energy. And if you're not doing it, I think you're being detrimental to the cause of your ministry instead of determining the cause of your ministry.
That's good. Yeah, you can't give out what you don't have for sure. You mentioned Brady. I remember when he came on at New Life when I was on staff there, and the first book that he put into the hands of staff was a book called The Rest of God. And my type A personality that I've mellowed out over the years, but back then I was like, what do you mean the rest of God? But you got to do. We're in ministry. You get on that treadmill of I've got to do. And he really taught us balance, that you need to rest. You need to understand what the rest of God is.
Yeah. Another resource that's been helpful to not only myself, but thousands really of other people is a book that was written called Necessary Endings. Henry Cloud wrote it. The essence of it is this: before you start and then start, which we like to do, we start this and start. Well, what are you ending? And there are things that need to come to an end so that you can have a good new beginning. Excellent, excellent book. I've recommended it hundreds of times.
I just started reading it, Chris. I have to agree with you. And it's an eye-opener for me because you never really hear about stopping things, ending things. I think you said earlier, we always hear that saying, winners never quit, quitters never win.
Yeah.
Remember? And how inaccurate that was. That's freeing.
Yeah, that's totally
inaccurate. Because I grew up in that generation where you constantly heard that.
And one of the main points is this: if you want to win, you're going to quit a lot of things, but you're going to quit the right things at the right time. So that you can start the new thing at the right time as well. Here's the point I think that Pam and I are trying to make, just to put bookends on it. Make sure that you have moments in time that you're restoring energy. So not only do you need to know what does bring you energy, but you have to participate in it. So it's not a knowledge only thing, it's a participation thing. So you need to know it and then participate in it. And if you're like me, you'll feel guilty about it for the first few times, but believe me, the energy that you get from it will eclipse your guilt feelings over time.
Yeah.
So whatever those things that are energizing to you are, know them, but participate in them on a regular basis.
Good word.
That's what energy's for. So you can do what you need to do and become who you need to become. Let me give you another hot tip. At least from my perspective, for those of you that are pastors and church leaders, I'll give you just a personal example from my own ministry, and specifically having to do with complaints. In church work, we have to make a differentiation between complainers and complaints. There are people that are going to complain, Christians, that Jesus came back at the wrong time, or something. I mean, that's just how they're wired.
Yeah.
It's just, the kind of people I'm talking about. And then there are people that have complaints. Well, complaints for me were always an energy drain. And so what I did is I ordered the way that complaints would come to me so that I could deal with them effectively, but that people knew that I was accessible, people in my congregation. So the last Friday of the month was Complaint Friday. Somebody has a complaint, that's great. Chris can meet with you Friday the 31st or 30th or 28th or whatever it is. Here's the thing, you have 10 minutes. It's a 10-minute meeting, and guess what happened? All the complainers didn't show up because, number one, they wanted more than 10 minutes, and number two, they really just wanted to complain. They didn't really care if what they were complaining about got taken care of or not. But those with legitimate complaints, we had a little form. They fill it out. Here's what it is, because I want it to be succinct. It does not take very long to complain. Right? You have a specific thing that needs somebody's attention and it needs to get fixed or eliminated or taken care of or whatever. 10-minute meetings, Friday afternoons, fill out a form ahead of time, and nobody could meet with me if I didn't know what the complaint was about. So somebody's trying to make the meeting. Well, what's this about? Well, I want to talk to Pastor Chris about that. Okay, I need to inform him what it is. Well, no, I want to talk to Pastor Chris about that. You can't meet with him. I have to know what it's about ahead of time. And the reason why is sometimes as a pastor, you need to arm yourself with some information.
Sure.
Well, if I don't know what the complaint's about, I can't arm myself with that information. Here's what happened. Everybody benefited. I benefited because I didn't have meetings scattered throughout my week or my month that were complaint-oriented meetings that I had to worry about. I knew when they were going to happen. All the meetings were short and succinct. Everybody that I met with felt heard, and it was super easy, almost in every situation, to deal effectively with every complaint. And so I eliminated what derails a lot of pastors because they're just dealing with complaints kind of randomly. And I was able to condense that down into a time frame and make sure that people would be heard, that their issues, complaints in this case, would be dealt with effectively, or I could tell them, well, there's nothing that can be done about that. We're going to have to live with that for a while, which is sometimes the case. You can't fix everything all the time. For me, that conserved a ton of energy.
It's wisdom.
So here's an action item for you as we wrap this session of the ministry show up. Who in your life brings energy to you? You just thought of somebody, didn't you, Pam?
I did.
Okay,
yeah.
So everybody thinks of somebody immediately. So whoever you just immediately thought of, make an appointment with them to occur within the next 7 days. Lunch, dinner, out for coffee, whatever. Go spend some time with them. Let me tell you, you need it because they popped into your head immediately. And then who in your life drains energy? Okay, you thought of somebody there too.
Yes.
And
Sure
so did I. And hopefully so did those of you that are listening. Here's the goal. With those folks, as much as possible, you need to limit your contact. 10 minutes instead of an hour. That's why I had to deal with complainers. I learned that most people that are complaining just want to talk. But I knew I could listen effectively to a complaint in 10 minutes. So I would give complainers 10 minutes, but not an hour.
That's good.
You might give somebody an hour of your time, but not a day if they're an energy drain. All we do is we begin to limit our contact with those that drain our energy and then increase our contact with those that give us energy. So that's the assignment here.
That's good.
Next week now, I've got a great friend of mine, Sean Lovejoy. We've been friends for a long, long time. I think I met him in 1999.
I love his last name, Lovejoy. Doesn't
He,
get any better than that.
That's a pretty good last name, Love and Joy, all in one. So listen to the interview, and then you'll find out if it represents him or not. But pastor of Mountain Lake Church for many years, started that church, I think 17 years, and then now he leads an organization called Courage to Lead. We got a great interview for you, so that'll be next week.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about it.
One of our sponsors called the Giving Crowd. If you haven't connected with them yet, let me encourage you to do so. They're just a great group of people, and their ultimate goal is to help you fund your ministry, but doing it in a productive way. In fact, the average American's net worth is typically comprised of only 9% cash, but 91% of assets that people have are not cash. Things like houses, cars. And so the vast majority of churches focus on the 9% instead of the 91%. Well, the Giving Crowd helps you on the 91%. So we have people in our churches and congregations that are being tapped on the shoulder from all kinds of very worthy organizations. They're alumni associations, heart associations, the whole gamut of nonprofits, Christian and secular. And guess what those people are doing? They're tapping on the shoulder of your people, and they're looking at them giving their assets. Well, the Giving Crowd helps you do that within the church so that those assets can be used to further your ministries and further expand, advance, and enhance the kingdom.
Yeah.
Give those guys a look, and then if you feel like they might be helpful, please connect with Steve or any other one of the great people there at the Giving Crowd. That does it for this episode of the Ministry Show, and I hope your energy is elevated and you're able to go out and do great work. Until next week, hope you have a great week. God bless.